And I think we have open seats up front if you're not timid. So, welcome. This is my first time in this hall, and it's lovely. I'm really enjoying being here. My name is Jane Brolsma, and I'm a retired school teacher. But more importantly today, I am a concerned resident of the San Luis Valley, probably like all of you. I was involved with organizing this town hall with some really nice, hardworking folks, and I'm really grateful that we were able to put this together. Yeah. So another person I'd like to acknowledge is Don Richmond. I met him, and now I don't see him. Everyone tells me he's such a nice guy, and I have found that out by working with him. He's been really helpful to our group, and he's made a difference bringing this Society Hall to Alamosa. So thank you, Don. And then also, if you haven't found your way to concessions, they're open through the whole event. You're welcome to go over and purchase a drink or snack. And if you haven't found the restrooms for your use, the men is on that side, the women is over there. So, well, first and foremost, I think what brings us together today is our connection to the San Luis Valley. And so, out of my own curiosity, I was wondering what counties are here, like where do you live? So if you would bear with me, I'm just going to name some, and if you would raise your hand if it's your county. You don't have to go wild cheering for your county. Just go ahead and raise your hand. So who here is from the county we're in, Alamosa? Put your hand up. Wow, that's a good group. Thank you. And then is there anyone here from Rio Grande County? Yay, look at this. Good. And then we have Conejos. Yes, look at that. Thank you for coming. And then Mineral. I know that's a ways. Wow, all right. Thank you. And then how about Castillo? I know they already made a big deal about it. These Fort Garland people. We did. And then my own county, Sawash County. Yes. I don't know, Alamosa. I think we might have outdone you. So, okay, my other question is, are there any county commissioners that are present? Could you put your hand up? Or I know Liza is one. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Very nice. And then Cleve is here. Senator Simpson is joining us today. And we couldn't get Senator Hickenlooper, but we had to settle for Patrick Ortiz. Anyway, it's really great to see so many of you here. We had no idea what the attendance would be for something like this, but this is just great to be together on this Saturday afternoon. We thought it'd be nice if at this time we could do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you wouldn't mind standing with me. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin our speakers taking the mic, I wanted to share a little background about how this town hall came to be and what purpose we hope it will serve. So historically, town halls are scheduled during congressional recesses where the representative returns to his or her district, and the goal is for that time to be spent meeting with constituents. Well, for the past month, several of us have called and emailed the offices of Jeff Hurd, our representative, asking him, would you please come have a town hall in the Valley? And we didn't get a response for that request. So a group of us thought, let's do a town hall anyway. So then we got planning, and then we invited him to come today. And if he couldn't come, we said, could you send a staff person who would report back to you, listen to our concerns and stories? And that didn't happen either. So what kind of puzzles me about all this is that if your ideas are popular and you really believe that you're working for the American people that you represent, why wouldn't you want to meet with your constituents? Why would you avoid them? So I have to say it's disappointing because we did really want to meet with him. But for this reason, we have an empty chair that is reminding us that we elected him and we wanted him to listen and be engaged and act on our behalf. So we really did hope that he would be here today to hear stories. So, you might share what you heard today with him in an email too. Well, secondly, what's happening in our country, to me, is happening at incredible speed, and it's scary and disheartening. And there are times I feel a lot of despair, some anger, and, gosh, sometimes just real sadness. And so I think that might be true for you who are here. So when President Trump and Musk, who, by the way, is his biggest campaign donor, what they're doing to me is not just illegal and unconstitutional, but there's some kind of chaotic mess and some cruelty to it. And perhaps this is why 130 lawsuits have been filed and challenged in court, challenging the legality of the actions that they're taking. And all I can say today is I feel fortunate that the judicial branch of our government is doing its job. Whoops. The other thing is Trump claims over and over again that he's had this mandate because he overwhelmingly won the election. And he did win in November. But the truth is, when you look at the numbers, fewer people voted for him than voted for someone else or didn't vote at all. So to me, that's not a mandate. Okay, so let me think. Am I missing a page? I think I might have missed a page. So, Cleve, is there a page? Oh, is that yours? I'm so sorry. I was so running around. Well, anyway, today we have 6 people in front of us who are from the Valley, and they're going to speak to you about the impacts they've seen over the couple months we've had of the Trump administration, and maybe even like looking ahead to what they might see potentially happening. So we are so glad that you have agreed to come and be with us. You're speaking publicly. So let me introduce Paula Medina. She is the mayor of LaJara, so she came from LaJara. And she is in her second term there, and beyond being a mayor, she also has a local nonprofit, Center for Restorative Programs, and she's a program manager and mediator with that group. She also is married and has 2 sons and 2 grandchildren. So Paula, we're so glad you're able to moderate for us today. There was one other thing. After the panel, there'll be time for you to pose questions to them or offer your opinion too. And then Patrick, I know, wanted to say something at that time. I think I'm not forgetting anything. Again, thank you, and make the most of it.
It's my pleasure to be here today to moderate this panel discussion, and just thank you for asking. Thank you, distinguished panel. Our first presenter is going to be Kyler J. Brown. He farms and ranches north of Monte Vista. He, along with his wife, kids, and in-laws, grows potatoes, coors barley, and raises cattle. Kyler serves on the Rio Grande Headwaters Land Trust Board and the Monte Vista Potato Growers Board. He is the chapter president of the SLV Rocky Mountain Farmers Union and serves on the Rio Grande Headwaters Land Trust Board. Kyler enjoys helping his neighbors and friends in this beautiful San Luis Valley. Help me welcome Kyler.
Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you, Cleve and Patrick and everyone. So I live just north of Monte Vista on 285, and we have a fairly classic San Luis Valley farm in terms of that we grow russet potatoes and coors barley. I married into the place, so I brought cattle along because that's all I want to do is play cowboy. And we had 7 calves this morning, so we're rocking and rolling. So we're a pretty small farm in our locale. Everyone else is quite a bit larger, and we just grow some russet potatoes. But as the administration started to unfold with the new president and the new administration, I think the biggest word that comes to me is uncertainty. And so in agriculture, we already have a lot of uncertainty. As of right now, commodity prices are pretty low. Potato prices are pretty low. The only thing that's kind of really hot right now is cattle. And so in terms of just how you kind of financially manage essentially a small business that just happens to be an agricultural one is trying to make plans. So a great example for me was that we've had the same fertilizer guys for, 25, 30 years now. And they called me up right after the inauguration in late January, 1st of February, and said, we'd like to come see you and hang out with you at your kitchen table and have a conversation. And they had yet to do that in the last 10 years that I've been on the farm, so I was like, well, this is nice. This is good customer service. I was pretty excited. And they did. They had a new person, and they wanted to bring him around and everything else, and so we sat there. But pretty much that was the main conversation. Was the lovely T word was tariffs. And so most of the potash was coming through Canada right now, and there's some coming through Brazil. But because of a plant in Wyoming being at its tail end and going down, most of it's being imported. So they were like, we're just trying to get 25% payment up front so we can try to get you a decent price before we're scared that it might go double or triple or whatever. And so I was like, I'm really glad that you guys came to me and were forward thinking. And then, of course, we started to unfold of just on and off and this kind of what becomes an interesting world of the global complexity of how my small little farm here in the San Luis Valley and how it connects to this really weird global food chain. And so another example of that is that if we are currently, our shed, I'm part of a co-op of 8 or 10 farms that all co-op our potatoes together, and then they get shipped across mostly the southern United States. But we're actually shipping quite a few to Mexico right now. And we ship about 8 semi-loads of potatoes to Mexico a week. And so all of a sudden with the latest round of tariff negotiations, this has now probably been a week and a half ago. It's hard to kind of keep up. I think that's the theme of the thing, uncertainty, and it's hard to know what the news is. I haven't checked my phone in the last hour, right? Those loads, which has been one of our few bright spots in terms of a market, in terms of price point, was those Mexico loads. And so those tariffs were all of a sudden going to pretty much bring that to a standstill. The marketer who we run our potatoes through said we're no longer going to send potatoes to Mexico anymore because putting a 25% tariff on them is not worth it. in that same breath, then they got paused, and then maybe there was some exclusions cut. But it also could have been a benefit to us, which was really starting to get confusing, because at the same time, potatoes could be stopped coming in from Canada. And Canada grows a huge amount of potatoes. So it could actually help the price of potatoes, which is not doing well. So I was really scratching my head to try to understand, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And I think that's what continues to have me scratching. I've heard that right now the EU is maybe imposing some retaliatory tariffs on beef, and mostly boxed beef going into EU. Like I said, one of the few bright spots in the farming market is cattle prices and beef. And if we decide to, and not that it's a decision, but if the current U.S. economy were to move into a recession, that would dramatically change that. Even with record low supplies of cattle, it would still change the demand. And if we change the export demand, that'll have an effect as well. So I guess where I'm going with this is I don't know whether this is economically good or economically bad. I don't know if the supply chain of parts for John Deere that are somehow central to Canada, Wisconsin, Mexico, and China, I don't understand how that whole global system happens and how I get that part to me. All I know is post-COVID, we've already had a phenomenal disturbance to our global supply chains. And so further disturbance is going to cost either time or money, and probably both. And so for me as a producer, it's mostly just more uncertainty. And it's really just making it hard to plan. You layer that on that we have our own water issues, our own climate issues here where we live. It just feels like a very stressful time. And so for me personally, and thinking about the stresses of our own operation and how to plan and how to make those adjustments, it then feels very selfish because I have a lot of friends who work in the federal government. I lived in Del Norte for the last 10 years, and so almost the whole town of Del Norte is half Govies, I tease. And so to have people who are, in their last trimester pregnant and then have their job all of a sudden removed because they were in the probationary period, or I know several people who've lost their jobs. And so that's been really difficult to then think about and to try to rationalize. But then I realize how it then might affect my actual business, and I haven't gotten my arms around that as well. And so a great example is I've been applying for a couple grazing permits, and that process hasn't been too stymied yet because the woman I connect with in that department still has a job and is still doing it. But her 3 people underneath her are no longer there, and they are pretty much serve all the range of the Rio Grande National Forest. So I'm not sure what this summer will look like for guys taking cows to the range. Maybe it'll be a free-for-all. Maybe it'll be great. I don't know. I don't know what it'll be like. But as I think about how many different ways I connect to FSA or USDA, I haven't gone and done my spring. I normally put in my acres and what we've planted and all those things. And I haven't gone into that office yet this spring, so we'll see what that process is like. But I'm really fascinated thinking about as we kind of conduct this grand experiment of changing how the federal government networks mostly with the rural western United States. And I understand that it may be a very different impact to a farmer in Iowa. It may be a very different impact to folks along the either seaboard, especially in metropolitan areas. But in the arid West, government jobs are more than 50% of our sector of how we actually employ our communities. And then rural development is a huge portion of how funding. And so I have a good friend who runs a conservation district, and they just lost a big grant because it had the word diversity in the title and some things like that. And so it's just more importantly that uncertainty piece, and really hard to plan in a place where we are spread out, where our resources are already thin, and so kind of putting on my land trust hat. I serve on that board, and think I'm supposed to be president here in a couple months, but don't tell anybody. We're going to find funding for this year. We're going to get through this year, but we have no clue what 2026 looks like. And that's all we do is we just try to keep farms and ranches and working lands and wildlife corridors and water in this cool place. And so it's just really frustrating to go, well, maybe foundations will step up. Maybe they'll shrink. Maybe private citizens will donate more. Maybe they're having their own trouble and they're not going to be able to. So more just uncertainty. And so that's been a really fascinating way to try to look through a non-for-profit's eyes, how it still engages with land and our community and agriculture, and just try to understand and all the ways that these ripple out across the arid West. And it's a really fascinating way how when you pull on one string, it affects a whole lot of other things. So I feel really lucky. I feel really fortunate. I have a deep community. I think this place breeds community. I think we're lucky to live here where we do need our neighbors, and our neighbors need us. And I think there's a lot of people who don't have that. And I feel very fortunate to be able to depend on a lot of people. So I hope as we learn from all these folks behind us and everything else, if you know someone who can be lifted up, or you know someone who can step in, or things like that, I think this is the time where we have to have each other's backs. One last comment is probably the labor portion of agriculture. So the warehouse that I'm a part of, we employ about 50 people in order to process those potatoes and get them across the United States. I don't really know a good accurate number of how many are what would be considered undocumented versus documented. That we definitely have folks who have a driver's license, but I'm not sure how valid it is. And we have just had a big shift in our own small space of really becoming mechanized. We've tried to, because of already the labor shortages and already the change in economics, of buying robots and buying seeing eyes and all these things that further move us away from a labor source that just, it's not the same as it was 20 or 30 years ago. Things have drastically changed, and COVID really cemented that more. And so as I try to get an inkling from folks we hire on our farm personally, as well as within that community of folks who work for minimum wage, who do fairly unfun, dirty jobs that are manual labor, that there's a lot of fear. And a lot of fear breeds a lot of people not wanting to come out of their home or their shadow to work even more. And so that's the main thing I get is it's going to be even harder to find folks to work. And it was already a pretty tough environment. So I feel for those folks, and I don't have any good answers. But I just know that if labor continues to be an issue, and we continue to probably strangle immigration, then we will in some way or another have it affect berry prices or whatever. Anything that needs to be handpicked will be affected somehow. So I'll just kind of leave on that note. But I just thank you guys all for being here. Appreciate you.
Hey, what happened to the potatoes that are not shipped to Mexico? Where are they now?
Well, that was actually an interesting discussion we had with we have a manager who runs the warehouse, and so our marketing folks, they're based out of Wisconsin, and they said, well, this may be a great opportunity because all the potatoes that were coming out of Canada above Idaho and Montana and Washington State are now not going to come. So we'll just turn those trucks, and instead of sending them to Mexico, we'll send them to Northern California or Washington. And I was like, have we ever shipped potatoes to the upper northwest ever. Like, Idaho is the largest producer of potatoes, like, in the world. Like, they're huge, behemoth. I was like, this might be the year. And so I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't have a good answer for you. But yeah, it literally, and I think that's more to the point of the pulling the string one place and having it have a host of effects in a bunch of different places that you didn't know and have unintended consequences. Most of our potatoes have a shipping advantage against Idaho, so that's why we go across the southern United States, because it's just farther for them to ship a potato from Idaho there than it is from the San Luis Valley. And so that whole apparatus may just get changed a little. And so I just don't, I don't know how it's all going to affect us. But anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you. And a quick reminder that we're going to have all our panelists speak, and then following that, you'll have a time to ask questions or express concerns. So if you have a question, jot it down so you don't forget, okay? All right. Our next speaker is Cathy O'Neill. Oh, Cathy O'Neill. Did you hear what I said about the question and answer? Okay, cool. All right. Cathy O'Neill was born and raised in a small town on the southern border of New Mexico, and while attending New Mexico State University in Las Cruces to earn her degree in soil science, she began an internship with the Soil Conservation Service, what would be known as the National Natural Resources Conservation Service. A year later, in 2001, she began work as district conservationist here in Alamosa and worked in the San Luis Valley ever since. She also worked as an area program specialist and finally an area resource soil scientist, covering approximately 20 field offices in the southeastern third of the state. Cathy is the past president of Colorado's chapter of the Soil and Water Conservation Service and has served the Hispanic Specials Emphasis Program Manager in both Oklahoma and Colorado, a program now defunct within USDA. After 31 years of service, she recently took the early retirement option offered by the current administration. Welcome, Cathy.
It's going to be hard to follow Kyler, so I'll do my best here. I had something planned to say, but I'm changing gears just a little bit because I had a little conversation with my friend Kris here. She was asking me what I'm going to be working on now that I'm retired. And it kind of leads back to something that happened last year. And I don't know how many of you get a copy of Alamosa's paper, but we were on the front page late spring last year. Somebody shot 18 bullets into our home. It's still an unsolved mystery, but used military-grade weapon. Nobody was hurt, thankfully, but it really shook my family and me. And so much so that I wrote a resignation letter. And thanks to family and friends who talked me off the cliff, I didn't submit it. But I ended up just burning through all my leave because I needed therapy and I needed time with my family and some time to just heal because it was very traumatic for us. But it's funny because in this long-winded resignation letter that I had intended to give to my supervisor, it kind of turned into a memoir that I'm still working on now. So anyway, I have lots to do in my spare time now, but I'm here to talk to you as a federal employee, someone who was affected by the current administration's decisions. Many of you already know that on January 20th, an executive order was signed into law that created DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency. Immediately, 3 lawsuits came in to say it's not legal because you can't create an agency without Congress. So even a temporary agency. So I'm not sure where all that is right now. I haven't kept up with the status on all those the many 131 lawsuits that have been brought up. But I can tell you a little bit about what it was like as a federal employee when this all was happening. I had essentially wrapped my mind around the fact that I wasn't going to retire anymore. I couldn't. 6 months ago, I wouldn't be able to talk to you. I still was I became agoraphobic. I didn't want to be around people and crowds, and it was a bad time. But I've come a long way. Therapy is really great, and I'm here with you now. Thank you. But on January 28th, we all received an email called Fork in the Road, and maybe some of you have heard of this. It came out that the government wanted to reduce, the administration wanted to reduce the federal workforce by 25%, which would have been about 600,000 employees at that time. 75,000 people took the DERP, the Deferred Retirement Program, which offered that if a person decided to resign, they would receive a paycheck, their regular paycheck, essentially be on administrative leave until September 30th. There was a point where it was paused because it was in court and they were trying to figure out if it was even legal, and the courts did say that they could go forward with the program. And I think about 70,000 of us took the program. I wasn't going to do it because, I don't want to. I have 31 years of service. I didn't just want to resign and give up my pension. But then about a week after they offered the Fork in the Road email, they opened it up to what they call VERA, which is the voluntary early retirement option. And so because of that, I went ahead and took it. Because the Fork in the Road letter, it had a lot of threatening verbiage in it. So, for example, you should really think about taking this offer because your agency could completely be dismantled. You should really consider taking this offer if you're afraid of your position being eliminated. You should really take this offer if you don't feel a loyalty to this. Well, it didn't even say to what. Loyalty was a word that was used. And so, that to me was scary, and I didn't want to lose my 31 years of federal service. So, I went ahead and took it once they opened up the early retirement option. But then after that, you may have heard that, and I think Kyler mentioned it, probationary employees were also given a surprise email saying essentially that it was based on their performance. That it was not in the government's interest to keep their position based on performance, which was, some of these people didn't even have performance reviews done yet. The head of NRCS Colorado was on the phone with us very regularly. He did a very good job trying to keep us all updated and try to allay a lot of our fears and our worries. And Clint Evans, he did a phenomenal job at trying to keep people calm. But when this came out, he immediately got on the phone and said, it had nothing to do with your performance. No one ever came to us and asked who is performing and who isn't. Nobody, it was just a flat out lie. And they have since reinstated, I think, 16,000 employees within USDA, thankfully. But a lot of people's lives were upended. I remember while he was on that call, there were people in travel status who had to find a way back home, who were told they weren't going to get paid for their travel anymore. People who had just been hired on, who had come from far-flung places like New Jersey and Florida, and suddenly they have to figure out what they're doing. So it was very slash and burn, very dishonest. I would call it a train wreck. It was, and every week there was a caveat, or we forgot about this, or there were some people who decided they would go ahead and take the deferred retirement, and then immediately received the letter that they were being terminated, and then received another email apologizing for the confusion. I mean, it was just it was chaos. And then after that, we started receiving notifications that we had to justify our positions to DOJ So we had to do 5 bullets. And the last I looked at my email before I shut it off forever, it said, by the way, you got to do this every week from now until what we tell you not to. So, and this is just that's not even including, the $420 million in contracts that were illegally canceled. There's so many things, like they got rid of our special emphasis programs. The Civil Rights Committee has been dismantled. They're deleting government records that are monitoring historical achievements of black people, brown people, queer people, women. It's just been a real, I don't know. It's been a nightmare, and I mean, I heard someone calling it a comedy of errors, and it would be if it wasn't so devastating to so many people and their lives. So, I guess I just want to testify to the fact that it's. I feel for my fellow federal employees who are still, having to deal with fear every day that they show up for work, not sure what's going to happen next. It's just a very tense situation. People aren't sure, we can't do outreach activities at colleges. We can't, recruit. Of course, there's not hiring right now, but anyway, it's in the name of downsizing the federal government. I don't know, when you weigh the pros and cons, how much comes out on the pros column, but anyway.
You don't feel like this is about downsizing the government?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to come up and tell you guys about, but.
To come up and say a couple things. I'm Pamela Ramade from Crestone, Colorado, and Cathy came out last spring and summer to help us find solutions to some of our situations of the San Luis Valley trying to make soil out of sand. And she's a soil scientist, a fabulous federal resource. I thank you for your civil service and everyone else. And I also wanted to add that I have worked as an independent contractor for a consulting firm, 2 or 3 of them, who provide services called teaching, training, coaching, professional development for almost 30 years as an independent contractor. And very early on, these were canceled. So I also have lost 90% of my income, as many, many other cascading contractors who support the good people who have been civil servants over the years. So programs that were providing support for the new people hired in the past year on how to be successful in the workplace, all of that was canceled. Wasted money. And people, when you talked about how people were dismissed, I almost want to call it abusive. It was horrible. So please.
Please.
Thank you.
We have invited these speakers to come and their time matters. Can you wait with your questions and comments? Thank you. There will be time. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Just jot down your questions, okay? Our next speaker will be Dr. Kris Steinberg. She's been a family physician in Alamosa since 1986, providing services for adults, children, and pregnant women her entire career. She has had decades of exposure to the needs of the underserved and migrant communities in healthcare areas in our valley. She also has overseen some public health services. What an accomplishment to be named Alamosa's favorite female doctor numerous times. Outside of the clinic, Dr. Steinberg is a volunteer at the Rio Grande Farm Park and SLV Spay and Neuter Alliance. She and her spouse, who is also a local physician, have a small ranch which they have placed under a conservation easement as their legacy towards open space in the valley. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Steinberg. And please remember to save your questions and comments for after the panel has spoken. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Indivisible, for the honor of speaking, and thank you, neighbors, for coming. I'm very impressed by your attendance. Makes me feel better. I'm here to talk about the threats to Medicaid, and I just wanted to briefly review what Medicaid is and talk about what may be happening as we go forward. Medicaid is a program that helps low-income people get health care services. It is a public health insurance program. The cost of Medicaid is shared between federal and state, paid through federal and state taxes. The state of Colorado receives the lowest federal matching rate at 50%. So we're at the floor presently. It is not luxury coverage. Medicaid pays hospitals and clinics less than the cost of providing the services. So everyone else helps cover those costs. It has an impact on all of us. Medicaid actually provides health care services to 25% of the population of Colorado, and that's 1.2 million people. In the San Luis Valley, that coverage changes by county, and Mineral County, for example, 26% of the population has Medicaid. Alamosa County, 51%. And Castilla County is our state high at 69%. Interestingly enough, Colorado Medicaid is one of the most efficiently run healthcare programs in Colorado, public and private. Its administrative costs are only 4%. This compares to 15 to 30% for most private insurance companies. So much for efficiency. Okay, people on Medicaid, who are they? 39% of people who have Medicaid are children. 55% are adults to age 64. 6% are seniors, even though they qualify for Medicare, and that will help them supplement their health care coverage through Medicaid. 5% are those who are disabled in our state. And interestingly enough, 44% of the births in our state are paid for by Medicaid. Greater than 60% of our seniors who are in nursing and rehab facilities are there because they can afford it through Medicaid. Think about it. It is safe to say that if we decrease our Medicaid coverage reimbursement, it would have major impacts on the availability of services in our community. We could lose nursing homes. We could lose maternity care services, we could lose clinics, and we could even lose our hospitals. And this, of course, has already started happening for other reasons in rural areas, and this raises our risk here in the Valley. Medicaid has indirect benefits. When we improve the health care of those who live around us, we improve our own health care. The obvious is infectious disease. If our neighbors are vaccinated against infectious disease, we are less likely to get that infectious disease. We're very worried about measles right now. If people cannot afford to get their children vaccinated against measles, we will have measles. But think about it in the arena of mental health care, alcohol and drug rehabilitation. If our neighbors can access services through Medicaid for those problems, we will see less violence, we will see less homelessness, and we will see less unemployment. That impacts everybody. Medicaid is actually a financial stimulus in all the states. When you think about it, if people are not unemployed, or if people are healthy, they're more likely to be employed. But even more broadly, if there is less medical bankruptcy, medical debt, those people otherwise will be able to pay for their own homes, pay for education for their children. We know those things are medical stimulus. It touches everyone. And, of course, in the San Luis Valley, as well as in many other places, one of our biggest drivers of the economy is the service of providing health care. So we have a large number of jobs in our community that are in nursing, are in clinic care, are in laboratory services, are in nursing and rehabilitation services, and definitely in the hospital. And if Medicaid cannot help us provide those services, there will be an economic impact in our community that will touch everyone. Just wanted to briefly touch on the issue of, quote unquote, Medicaid is paying for illegal aliens to get health care. I do want to say, and appropriately so, the people who are undocumented who qualify for Medicaid services are children and pregnant women. Now, the pregnant women thing is easy. You're providing health care for that future citizen. Give me a break, all right? Children, would we not want to provide health care for all children? Trump and our Congress have proposed cuts to Medicaid. Some of the proposals include things like work requirements for those receiving the services, a change in the federal matching rate, noticing that we're already at the low end, setting caps per member on federal payments, or just directly decreasing payments to providers and hospitals. All of those things would have a significant impact on our economy. During his campaign, Trump stated that he would not touch Medicaid. Now cuts are on the table. Like all the other services we're going to talk about today, it's a moving target. Colorado could be cut by $8 billion. And this is challenging in the state of Colorado because of the Tabor Act. We can't just raise more taxes to make up the difference. That money would have to come from other services. Your roads, your schools, your social services, you name it. You steal from Peter to pay Paul. And, what's more important? Everybody has to, how do we decide? We don't get to decide whether we get roads or health care. Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, Medicaid is hugely problematic due to waste, fraud, and abuse. And this is the best. We know it intuitively. Truly. I am so glad decisions are being made at the federal level based on intuition. How about mind reading, divining rods, or throwing dice?
That was awesome. Okay, I'd like to welcome our next panelist, Angelica Maya Trejo. She was born and raised in Mexico in 2007. She and her family immigrated to Alamosa, where they have lived for the past 18 years. Her parents are farm workers, and their hard work and sacrifice have greatly influenced Angelica's path. Angelica graduated from Adams State University in 2017 and has since dedicated herself to advocating for immigrant rights. She has been serving the community for the last 8 years at the San Luis Valley Immigrant Resource Center. In addition, she has served on several committees contributing to initiatives that support immigrant communities. As an immigrant herself, Angelica has a deep understanding of the challenges many face when navigating the complex immigration system. For the past 3 years, she has served as a Department of Justice accredited representative, assisting individuals through the complexities of immigration policies and processes. Help me welcome Angelica.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry I'm a little nervous. This is the first time that I'm speaking in the public like this. And also my accent might get worse as I go. So I wrote everything that I wanted to say just so I don't start talking and going off tangent. So bear with me. Over the last months of this Trump administration, we have witnessed many rapid changes. We knew that immigration or immigrants will be one of the targeted groups. But what caught us off guard was how quickly these changes were being implemented. One significant policy change is that anyone with a criminal record, including misdemeanors like shoplifting, can now be arrested and detained by ICE. This is not limited to undocumented immigrants. We have seen in other parts of the United States that even legal permanent residents have been arrested and put into proceedings due to past incidents on their record. People are placed in expedited removal, which means that they get deported without a chance to defend their cases. The most recent change involves a registry for immigrants. Under this new policy, individuals without documents must now register with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Failure to register could result in arrest and detention for up to 6 months, along with fines. People are also required to carry proof of registration. The problem here is that immigrants register with ICE if they register with ICE, they will have access to their information, making them vulnerable to arrest and deportations. One of the most pressing concerns with ICE is that I'm sorry, let me take a deep breath because I'm getting a little too nervous here. So one of the most pressing concerns with current ICE enforcement is the increased use of expedited removals, which denies individuals the opportunity to challenge their cases. Previously, those detained by ICE had the right to request a bond hearing, allowing them the chance to secure release while their cases was pending. Provided that they did not possess a threat to public safety, individuals also had the right to a hearing before an immigration judge if they were undergoing removal proceedings, seeking asylum, or applying for cancellation of removal. While the government does not provide any attorneys, individuals were entitled to seek legal representation independently. However, these procedures have changed. The rise in expedited removals has resulted in troubling trend where individuals, upon arriving at their hearings, are detained on the spot or at the time of their checking. Because people that are in proceedings, they still need to go to the ICE office and say, I'm still here. So once they go and they go and say, I'm still here, say, oh, well, I'm glad that you're still here because I'm going to deport you now. In recent months, immigrants have grown increasingly fearful as their rights are being systematically undermined. Even those with no criminal history are now being deported without a fundamental right to legal counsel, despite the legal protections in place to safeguard them. These changes are deeply affecting our community, especially families with mixed status. In these households, one or both parents may be undocumented, while their children are U.S. citizens. When news spread about ICE raids happening in Colorado, many people became terrified to leave their homes. Children are afraid to go to schools because they're worried that their parents might not be there when they return. Workers are afraid to go to their jobs, fearing a raid that could lead to deportation. Even immigrants who have legal status are afraid to go out, whether it's to the doctors, shopping, or attending any religious services. This administration has made it clear that there are no safe places for them. But we need to understand that this situation does not just affect immigrants. It is affecting all of us. Agriculture is one of the main industries in the San Luis Valley. And as we know, most of the workers in this industry are immigrants. Immigrants also make up a significant portion of the workforce in the service industry, including restaurants and hotels. With the recent policy changes, these industries are facing workers' shortage, which will impact businesses and the local economy. Contrary to popular belief, undocumented workers pay taxes, but they are not eligible for benefits, so their contributions are often overlooked. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for any government assistance, such as SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare, housing, or monetary assistance. And if any family are receiving those benefits, it's because of their U.S. children. Those benefits are just for the children. As a community, we are also feeling that strain, that stress that immigrant families and children are under is taking a toll on their mental and behavioral health, which ultimately the overall dynamics of our community, families and communities. Additionally, there is growing tension and division within the community as debates arise over whether immigrants should be treated with dignity or whether they should all be deported. This has led to misunderstandings and polarization. Immigration is a complex and controversial topic. However, we must think about the human impact. These policies are not just affecting people we don't know. They're impacting our families, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. By pushing people into the shadows, we are telling them they're not worthy of living in our community with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Eric Francis. He's a disabled veteran. He and his family moved to the Valley almost 10 years ago from Western Kentucky. While in the Army, Eric rose to become a senior officer specialist and tactical operator self-defense instructor in the Military Police Corps. 12 years after joining the Army, he was injured in the line of duty and medically retired. He later worked for the Department of Justice. During that time, Eric was elected vice president and then president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 2324. AFGE is the largest federal employee union in the United States, representing over 750,000 government employees. Due to his military service and DOJ employment, his status as a disabled veteran, he is here today to offer his perspective on recent developments affecting disabled vets like himself. Let's welcome Eric.
Well, I appreciate everybody for being here today. It means a lot to my family and to the vets. Bear with me a little here. I'm quite pissed nowadays. These aren't tears of fear. My wife and I, we brought our two young kids here. They were 2 and 4, 10 years ago. Because quite frankly, in the South where we're from, now I'm sure there's people here that's live there or from there. So you could tell even back in, say, 2014 or so that things were really, it was just a different feel. Even at my own family reunions, I got refused service in my own hometown by a Vietnam vet because I had grown my hair out after my injuries. So it was a very good wake-up call for me on what the minorities and the women in this country deal with. And let me just say with that point, my heart is broke. And I'm sick of what's happening to the women in this country. Yes, we have all this policy stuff that's going on right now, but the women and the brothers and sisters of color in this country are under attack, period. You can't sugarcoat it. It's happening right in front of all of us. Let's take the blinders off and actually see what's going on, okay? Let me clarify a few things on what you actually read. It was a little mixed up. I joined the Army, the U.S. Army, when I was 17 years old on the delayed entry program. Gave up athletic scholarships to go serve. I was in the military police corps where I served with DESCOM, which is Depot Systems Command. And I carried a top secret PRP clearance because we were part of the security force that guarded the largest nuclear arsenal in the United States, which is at that time was Sierra Army Depot up in the Sierra Mountain, California. And I also did an overseas tour in Korea. Did some classified missions along the North Korean border and so forth. And it's not about me, though. This isn't about who I am, though. I'm trying to explain a little bit about all the vets. I did my 4 years. I got out, and that's when I hired in with the Department of Justice. 12 years into my career there, I was severely injured in the line of duty and almost killed with a traumatic brain injury. But thanks to my wife and some good doctors, I made it through. And with the injuries with the DOJ and me being a disabled vet as well, we're getting a very unique perspective on what's going on. And I'm not here to say poor us. I'm prepared to lose everything I got and stand on the front line of these protests that are coming. When I raised my hand in 1988 to protect and serve this country from foreign and domestic enemies. And I feel like I've been called back into service, quite frankly. I came here 10 years ago to not ever speak to anybody publicly again. You know, I did a lot of it when I was the union vice president and president. But it's not the time to sit back and not do anything. I'm greatly worried about what's going on in the country. I still have contacts within the DOJ, several branches within the DOJ. My retirement comes directly from OPM that you hear about on TV, Office of Personnel Management. I'm locked out of my retirement. I can't even access my own retirement. Okay? The VA benefits are being cut daily. Okay? They've already made 83,000 VA employees have been cut. And if anybody knows anything about the VA, it has a hard time functioning now. Okay? What they're trying to completely shut the VA down, just like with the Department of Education, with all these other departments. That's what they're after right here. They also canceled $2 billion in VA contracts. You know, people hear contracts and they think fixing the sidewalks and stuff. These are doctors and our nurses. I've already lost my doctor. I was notified last month. And my upcoming doctor's appointments have been canceled. So with the VA, you don't just reschedule. You're looking at 8 months probably before you are able to, and that was before to get in. So if I had something terminal at this point, I would literally be hung out to dry with no medical care. Okay? The PACT Act. I don't know how many in here are aware of the PACT Act, but the PACT Act was fought for years. And Joe Biden finally got it through for us, for the vets who had been inhaling burn pits and so forth over the years in these combat zones and so forth. This is a very real thing and very real sickness. These aren't guys and women that are just not really sick. They're just trying to drop these. We worked hard, very hard for years to get this PACT Act through. It's gone. Matter of fact, when you call the VA hotline now, it doesn't even mention it. It used to be one of the first things they mentioned was the PACT Act. All the suicide prevention lines are gone. Gone. Completely gone. And from what I'm hearing, of course, it's hard to put numbers together, really, with it. It's so chaotic right now with everything that's going on. On a normal day, 22 vets a day on average kill themselves, commit suicide. the numbers I'm hearing is it's possibly tripled or quadrupled in the last 60 days. My wife and I have actually seen videos of vets on TikTok begging for help through TikTok, trying to get somebody to respond for help. So, and that's just the bare minimum stuff that the VA's cutting. I mean, it's all structured around it. If you read Project 2025, we don't need to guess what they're doing. Okay, it's all in there. Every bit of it. Everything that's happened so far is in Project 2025. Like I spoke earlier, the women's rights, the minority rights, the LGBTQ community are all under attack. And quite frankly, if you're a registered Democrat, you're under attack. Okay? And I'm not here to be hyperbolic or spread fear, because I refuse to be scared. I refuse. But for sure, my family is directly affected for the simple fact we wake up every day not knowing. I don't know. We don't know. It could all be cut any day. You know how it is with stroke of a pen. So we're going to fight. My wife and I and our kids. We were at Standing Rock in 16 for the vet stand. We got gassed and hit with pellets at the state capitol for the George Floyd protest. So we're not new. I'm not new to pushing back. And I take my union duties that I had over the years very, very seriously. And there's another aspect that we haven't even touched on. If anybody thinks the unions are going to be able to do anything right now, you're wrong. We have no enforcement power in this country at this particular moment. Yes, I'm very glad that we're winning a lot of the judiciary decisions, almost all of them. We're getting ready to come to a precipice point here real soon, because with the contempt charges that are coming with all the illegal activity that they're doing, who's going to arrest? Who's going to enforce the judiciary rules, the rulings? Right? Well, I'm scared. I'm scared what's going to happen. Because if they choose not to enforce the judiciary, we're in bad shape. Okay? It's just, that's what it is. Did anybody see the crowd that showed up in Denver last night? That is what this country is going to have to do. Is those crowds, they can't get all of us, you know. And sadly enough, I'm looking around. I'm almost 54 years old. I challenge all of you to get out and speak to your grandkids, your children, to try to press upon them what's really going on right now and try to get more people involved. My family and I will be at as many protests in Denver as we can make, as we can do. We're not going to quit. I guess just to close is, I just want us all to try to do our best to come together and just forget all the silly stuff that really doesn't mean shit. Really, it doesn't. We're all Americans, and if you believe in democracy, let's join arms and let's go stand on the front line and maybe take an ass whipping if we have to. But I'm willing to go do it. Okay? Thank you guys.
Our last panelist that's up here is Kris Canaly. She joined San Luis Valley Ecosystem Council in 2000. She mobilized key local and regional constituencies to support legislation for the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve Act of 2000 and received congressional recognition for her efforts. In coordination with the EPA Region 8, she joined with SLV community leaders to prioritize environmental health protocols, which have since engaged over 1,000 households in educational forums for protecting their indoor air and water quality through mitigation and regular household maintenance. She has participated with numerous core teams to develop other SLV conservation organizations and been the recipient of awards that pay tribute to her activism. Before moving to the San Luis Valley in 1988, she worked as an engineer with CNN headlines in Atlanta, Georgia, and NBC News in New York City. Let's welcome Kris.
Yeah, and Paula's been doing mediation for a long time in this valley. Eric mentioned Standing Rock. I just want everyone to know that 2 days ago, Greenpeace basically was, because of a slap suit by Transfer Energy, blaming them for organizing Standing Rock, is now basically being told to pay $620 million to an oil and gas company, Transfer Energy in Texas. They're challenging it, but yeah, and it was absolutely a total setup. But I don't want to go there. I want us to because I apologize. I'm going to say some numbers here. Don't worry about remembering those numbers, but it's the intent behind them that's really, really important right now. I feel compelled. Thank you, everybody, for being here, by the way. It's really, really important right now. It feels really good. Thank you for being here. And I just wanted to do a very quick civics lesson regarding federal government's role in terms of understanding the importance of the redistribution of wealth. In Colorado, we get back almost as many federal tax dollars as we give. An example of this reimbursement that we see locally through the counties is the compensation of PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, because counties receive financial compensation due to the federal public lands that are here. This is very important to highlight because it is an example of federal dollars given to support local economies right here, whose residents use and benefit from these public lands every day. Did you know that 80% of the federal workforce does not even live in D.C.? And if you take out the military-industrial complex, who actually works in D.C. is more like 6%, okay, of federal workers. Yeah, that doesn't quite fit the narrative of downsizing that keeps getting drone on, that we hear constantly. And that there are almost 57,000 federal workers that live right here in Colorado. 57,000. I bring this up because, in absolute terms, the federal workforce is slightly smaller than it was 50 years ago. Even though the U.S. population has increased from 220 to 320 million people. 220 to 320 million people since the 1980s. During that same period, less than, and this is the part I really want everyone to please listen to this because it's unbelievable. Less than 3 million people even work for the federal government. Okay, so do the math here. We are literally dealing with a federal workforce that has not increased since the 1980s. That means with 320 million people living in this country, that means that less than 1% of the population, folks, works for the federal government. Why all the demonization and focus on inefficiency, bloated government, and waste? I'll tell you what. I would much rather that 1% in the federal government be representing me right now than the 1% that's in control of our federal government. So to bring this back locally to our public land managers, the San Luis Valley U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wildlife refuges have lost 30% of their workforce over the last 15 years. That's almost a third. Great Sand Dunes National Park, who was recently told they couldn't hire their seasonal temporary employees for the summer visitation, though they are currently working to reverse that decision. The Dunes brings in $41.3 million to the local gateway communities here annually. The Dunes is an important economic driver and anchor in the San Luis Valley. The Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area, which was passed by an act of Congress in 2009 and just received reauthorization in 2023, is also managed by the National Park Service. And it is now struggling with potential funding cuts. And we were asked just this last week to write a support letter to our congressional delegation. At least 17 Rio Grande Forest employees were fired recently. Within the Canales Peak Ranger District, we have 3 districts, Canales Peak is one of them. In the Canales Peak Ranger District alone, 5 employees were let go, which happens to be 40% of their entire workforce. So why is this happening? What is really the larger picture here? In short, the current administration wants 1, access to public land resources, 2, they want to reduce regulations and oversight, and 3, ultimately, they want to privatize the resource. There are so many executive and secretarial orders that have rolled out of the current administration to open up and acquire public land resources that it's futile to list here. It's safe to say that there's probably close to 30 directed specifically at public lands, likely more. As an example, Interior Secretary Burgum issued secretarial orders unleashing American energy that will gut regulatory protections of America's beloved and ecologically valuable and connected natural landscapes, many located here in Colorado, to be replaced with fossil fuel and other mineral extractive leasing. The Bureau of Land Management recently issued their quarterly oil and gas leasing nominations for Colorado, and they're offering up to 51,000 acres, almost 80 square miles, in northern and western Colorado. The facts are that oil production in the U.S. is currently higher than it's ever been. And oil and gas corporations are already reaping record profits. The Interior Department has also completed a 15-day internal review of national monuments and all protected public lands that have been withdrawn from fossil fuel and mining development. They are manufacturing a sham energy crisis as the reason to illegally privatize and sell off our country's precious public lands to the highest bidder, and doing so in the cover of darkness with zero public input. Congressman Jeff Hurd is supporting these efforts, by the way, and believes, like the Heritage Foundation, that development of America's oil and gas reserves on a large scale will not significantly impact climate temperature. Go to their website. Go to their website, Heritage Foundation. Look it up. Even if you believe this to be true, what about the impact to air and water quality and other forms of pollution, like ozone? Why is there now a concerted effort to remove monitoring and regulatory obligations from agency baseline data and fire the employees that are responsible for this work? There are many moving pieces in this puzzle, but suffice it to say that a significant outcome of leasing public lands to extractive industries becomes a direct benefit to them immediately, because it inflates their own acquisition portfolios, which they then use to attract big investors, including companies dominating international markets. Polluting fossil fuel industries are feeling threatened now because renewable energy has made tremendous inroads in global markets, and its infrastructure is cheaper to produce and maintain. Plus, it's far cleaner. The SLV is poised to support this renewable energy transition, and Hurd needs to understand that representing renewable energy development, especially on private land, is representing us and our future here as well. Public input is important and does matter, and we do make a difference. I've attended hundreds of public meetings over the years, with many others in this room. And participation does influence the direction of public policy decisions. Public officials do listen because we elect them. As a point of comparison, just how many corporate board meetings have you been invited to? We all need to be concerned about the pursuit of privatization of public assets, which includes our public lands, but it also touches upon many of our other basic rights, like accessing our Social Security retirement investment that we invested in, and we deserve to get it back, to health care, Medicare and Medicaid, to future generation educational opportunities. And everybody sitting here represents, the federal government's falling apart, so we'll just bring in companies to manage it better. Yeah, like that's going to happen. So not only are we going to be paying our taxes, but we're going to have to pay for every frickin' service we receive, believe me. They're not creating efficiency in the federal government right now. They're dismantling oversight so they can justify privatization that a select few will grotesquely profit from. How much of this energy dominance do you think we will actually stay here and not be shipped off to global markets? I have a summary sheet on the table back there and a sign-up sheet. If you're interested in receiving our newsletter, please sign up. We will continue to have impact, but we must stay vigilant and involved, and now is the time. On a positive note, and I'm so glad Senator Simpson is here, because of all this public lands threat, the Colorado State Legislature and Senator Simpson just passed a resolution last week. It's called Protection of Colorado's Public Lands, reaffirming the state's commitment to keeping public lands under federal stewardship. You can read more detail in the summary sheet that's back there. Thank you. We cannot let our guard down, but together we will get through this attempted public asset grab. Future generations and the rest of the country needs our commitment right now. Thank you.
Okay, that's a boost. Real quick, we're going to have Patrick come speak for a bit. And then we were hoping to get someone from the education field, but spring break ran this week and we weren't able to get anybody. So if there's someone after Patrick Ortiz speaks that wants to speak on education, just let me know. Okay, after Patrick Ortiz.
First off, I want to thank you all for sharing your stories. It's powerful and it's meaningful. You all contribute to our society and know you're valued. Thank you all for being here. I'm Patrick Ortiz, San Luis Valley Regional Representative for Senator Hickenlooper. I oversee the San Luis Valley, Chaffee, and Park regions. In my role, I serve as a bridge between stakeholders and our office, keeping you informed about legislation, funding opportunities, and policy changes. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime for support. Thank you for the opportunity to share the Senator's recent work today. First off, as we heard just now, we're facing something we've never seen before. Senator Hickenlooper has watched President Trump propose deep cuts to Medicaid to fund tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy. This administration is firing key staff with no plan, leaving our public lands, veterans, and weather services in the lurch. The Senator shares the anger and frustration many of you are feeling. We hosted a virtual town hall last week. Over 8,000 Coloradans attended. Folks submitted over 2,000 questions. Senator Hickenlooper is committed to using every tool at his disposal to challenge the Trump administration's illegal actions that are hurting Colorado, like freezing federal funding and dismantling federal departments and agencies. He's doing that by blocking votes on the Senate floor, putting pressure on his Republican colleagues, and supporting legal challenges. Last week, Senator Hickenlooper voted against the Republican bill to fund the federal government. The bill, called a continuing resolution, wipes out congressional oversight, allowing the executive branch and not Congress to cut and redirect federal funding however they want. Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett recently held a virtual town hall for federal employees who have been fired under the Trump administration. The senator also highlighted Amelia Huffman's story at the joint address to Congress. She is a veteran and former Forest Service employee from Colorado who was recently fired by the Trump administration. Our office created a federal employee resources section on our website for any fired federal employee who needs help. With the new administration, things are changing fast, but we're here to keep communication flowing. Senator Hickenlooper continues to push for real change and is always here to support you. Don't hesitate to reach out to our office anytime. And thank you all for your time today.
Someone wants to speak on education? Well, this gentleman first, and then we can bring you the microphone.
Wow. My name is Pete Anderson. I've made my home up in Crestone for the last 25 years. My wife, Grace, and I raised our 2 daughters here in the Valley. For 20 years, I taught writing in several different situations, a community college that served working people taking night classes to improve their lives, a Quaker seminary that honored a tradition of nonviolence and peacemaking, and finally at Adams State, where I spent 10 years teaching composition and creative writing. Of those years, the best 10 years of teaching were here at Adams State, where I had the great privilege of learning about the San Luis Valley from my students and colleagues. I love Alamosa, I love Adams State, and I love the San Luis Valley and the people who live here. Hear this from the Adams State website. Adams State is a federal Hispanic serving institution, HSI, a designation which affirms that a university has a student enrollment population that is more than 25% Hispanic. Adams State has a Hispanic student population of 37%. Beyond the distinction of federal designation, Adams faculty and staff know that to be an HSI is a call to serve, celebrate, and support the advancement of the diverse students who identify as Latino, Latina, Chicano, Chicana, Mexican American, and Hispanic. We honor the resilience and determination of the students who've enrolled at Adams State. Our students expect high quality education and the opportunity to express and build on the richness of the cultural heritage they bring to Adams. That's the statement. I'm deeply concerned about the way the current administration is attacking universities who hold these kinds of values. Grants like the Title V grants to HSI institutions like Adams State are in jeopardy, as is the academic freedom to teach and learn about minority traditions and cultures. Current developments in the news, including threatening letters sent out to universities throughout the country who support diversity initiatives and or cultural heritage programs and classes, are troubling, to say the least. Freedom to teach is freedom of speech. Adams State is in many ways the beating heart of the Valley and of Alamosa. So let's speak out for what we have here, another public asset. Let's send a message to our representatives and to the current administration. We believe in the mission of our university, and we won't back down. Thank you.
Wait, it's okay. We're going to open it up. Okay? Do you want to speak a little bit first?
And then following, yeah, careful. Then we have a little less than a half an hour. So to respect everybody's time, we'll have time for questions and comments, but try and be a little bit brief. And
So I want to talk about public education. I won't talk long, but the story that everybody's told about Medicaid, about farmers, about public lands, about the vets is about to hit education. They just announced, even though Trump has said we're not going to get rid of Title I, famous last words. And so I just want you to, public education in this valley and in most rural areas collapses without that, because schools are based on property taxes. So Cherry Creek and Mill Valley and Manhattan are going to be fine. But if you don't have high property taxes, your schools depend on those taxes. And I just want to say a little bit about schools, because I work with the high schools, primarily middle schools. You don't think of it, but teachers are first responders. They have lists. They go to football games, and they know which parents they can't let the kids go home with because they're probably drunk. And the teachers drive them home. And the school that was going to spend some money on a new copier decided to buy a washing machine and a dryer so they could and they come in early to do the kids' wash. And they know which kids are living in unstable environments and how many, at what level, when they need to intervene. And they do all this stuff, and they have lists so that every kid has a Christmas present. And they run Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas dinners. And they do all this in addition to teaching an 8-hour day. So they're first responders. And then also think about what happens, particularly Head Starts, but public education. Think of all the people who are employed, what will happen to them if they can't send their kids to school. So think about what that's, to me, the theme that runs through this, there's a very similar thing. It's about crashing the economy. And when you do that, and when people are desperate, they stop thinking long term. They stop thinking about how can I help somebody else, because they're trying to figure out how to put food on the table. So I think I'm just excited that there's so many people that are here, and some of you may know about April 5th, which is the next big event people are shooting for. And if we each brought 5 or 10 people, I'm going to talk to some people about getting a bigger location. If we each brought 5 or 10 people, and if everybody, there's going to be big things in Denver, big things in Washington. This is our time everywhere. Salida. Forgot Salida. Go to Salida, but maybe here too. So this is our time to act. I think it's almost like a national strike that we have to create on April 5th. And it is making a difference. So I just thank all the people who put this together. I mean, amazing. I had my... And they had a slightly smaller space that was about half the size. And when I heard they were going to this space, I went, oh, no, you can't do that. It's too early. You guys were right. So, thank you.
Thank you. If you have a question or a comment, if you'd raise your hand, we have someone that will bring a microphone to you.
Thank you. Hi.
Could you stand, please?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm just letting everyone know this is being video recorded, so you can actually talk to the audience or talk to whoever.
Yeah, my name is Keith Langley. I'm from Fort Garland. Moved there about a year and a half ago. My mother has been there for 30 years, Nicole Langley. She has been a grant writer in this valley, and she has brought millions of dollars of federal and state and philanthropic money in for everything from water projects to parks to curb cuts and reservoirs to historical landmarks. She's never lost a grant until this year. She had a grant for Sanford School to bring in a new track and field complex and to cover over a hazardous ditch that ran nearby it. Two really simple grants, GOCO and a water grant, should have been just routine, but suddenly no one has money. No federal grant, no federal sources, and also the state sources are drying up because they know they don't have the backup from the federal sources anymore. So an awful lot of things that we depended on, that we assumed were going to happen, are suddenly gone. We have farmers who took loans out to do things like soil conservation, water conservation, energy efficiency, for which they were going to get a 50% rebate, that they knew they were going to get the 50% rebate, and their banker knew that too, so the banker was happy to give them a loan based on that. Rebate isn't coming. The loan is due. And that's happening all over the valley right now, all over the state, all over the country. So it's not just federal money, but if you were counting on anything from the state, that may also be gone. We have no assurance of anything anymore. And as someone said, because of Tabor, we can't just raise state taxes to make up for what we're not getting in federal money. It just, we don't know where things are going. In that situation, if you need a grant written, my mom's 86 years old and she's good at it, and she needs a job. So talk to me later.
All right, thank you. We have that lady. And remember, if you have questions for our panelists.
I'm Mary Ellen Fleming. I have a question for the panel. One of the earlier speakers, I forget which one, said executive orders were being signed into law. I don't think that's correct. Congress makes laws, not the president. So if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. Thank you. That used to be the way it was, not anymore. Thank you.
Okay, there's a lady.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ina Anderson. Is that good? And I'm from Swatch County. I am a trustee for our local library district. But I'm going to speak from my heart on a personal level about what's happening or could happen to our libraries with the elimination, the executive order to eliminate the Institute for Museum and Library Studies. So I want everybody to know the potential impact that has on our Colorado State Library, which receives some of those federal funds and trickles down to all of our local libraries. The support system, the resources that are going away. So really the point is to just be aware of what's happening and to please show up and stand up for libraries and be a library supporter and help us make sure that our officials know how much we value our library system and our public, all of our public institutions that are being really dismantled. And the library, as we know, is a hub of the community and so important.
Up here? Over here?
Okay. I'm going to let her as our moderator, and I'm going to follow her command. It's right here.
Where you were going to. Ease my aching bones. My name is Rich Jewett. I live in Crestone, 25 years. And it's all these issues, and there are many more that can be stated, but this and that are falling apart and being undermined. First of all, my background in psychology says we're being led by a psychopath. And he's got all this junior psychopaths following for whatever reason, for God's sake. And there are two elements of that diagnosis: antisocial personality disorder, really. One is an inability to have empathy for other people. The other is, while they're very clever at getting their way, they're fundamentally stupid at paying attention to the repercussions of their behavior. They just don't get it and won't get it. But the thing that tweaked me was recently hearing how Putin and Trump had a phone call scheduled. Trump calls in to Putin. Putin's in a meeting with a bunch of people somewhere in Russia. And they said, Mr. Putin, Mr. Trump is on the phone. And he made some dismissive comment, oh, let him wait. And the whole room burst out laughing. He's not just laughing at Trump, which he apparently has been doing for years. He's laughing at the United States. I think he yearns to see the economy of this country unravel. After 80 years of opposition between the U.S. and Russia, he's winning. And I think even if Trump was assassinated, I think Putin would love it, because it would create so much chaos in his country, and that's what he wants. I think he wants the U.S. to become a puppet of the United States. And he's aiming that way. He's aiming in that direction and succeeding. I think the MAGA people need to get that. No matter what their justifications are, look at where the road is going, and can they pull themselves away from Trump's devotion, his fealty to Trump? Can they see that?
Okay. There's one in the back, and then
To my right or left? I'm sorry.
yeah, in the red.
Hi, got a live mic here. I'm Meryl Ennis, and I just wanted to say that we've been hearing an awful lot that has raised our anger, our emotions, and what we really want to move forward, it's just as a number of people have said, is how do we take action? And there are a number of ways to take actions. There certainly is the April 5th coming up. That is a national protest. But there's a lot of very everyday, simple things we can do. In the back, there's a list of contact information for all of our elected representatives. Make sure that whatever your topic is, give them a call, write them an email, go to their webpage, let them hear our voices. There are several groups that are available here in the Valley between the Democratic Party, between the Indivisible. There's sign-up sheets for that. Let's make sure that in every way that works with our own hearts, that we take action and speak and let ourselves be counted. Thank you for everyone who's been here today.
I'd like to let everyone know that, I don't know if they knew this, but 30% of the federal workers are veterans. And that's like a double whammy there. And my father was a disabled veteran of World War II. My great-grandfather was a veteran of the Civil War, Colorado Cavalry. So I come from a long line of veterans of the United States, as well as probably before other countries. But I just want to give extra support to our federal workers, which many are veterans, and that's going to, I don't know what the suicide rate, as they think, these veterans are federal workers that have this other job that will decide to take their lives without the support that they need. I'm a veteran too, of the Colorado Army National Guard, and I received some veterans benefits, but I have other Medicare and all that other stuff, which I'm not totally dependent on the veterans. I'm hearing that there's veterans from here in Alamosa that are going to the Veterans Hospital in Denver, and they're turned away. They had an appointment, and there's no doctors there. Isn't there anymore?
I can speak on behalf of what you're speaking on. There's been thousands of doctors let go. Thousands. Like I said, I've been affected personally myself already. But yeah, that's just the beginning of the, and people hear these of the VA letting go of $2 billion in contracts.
That's ridiculous. They're short-handed.
Those are doctors that are under contract. It's not fixing sidewalks and landscaping. It's $2 billion. So we really won't know the impact probably for another 6 months or so at least. How bad it actually
do you know
is.
if the Alamosa VA clinic is in jeopardy?
Oh, I would say that any of these very small offices are probably going to be gone completely because they're not doing a whole lot anyways.
They're not?
Well, I meant compared to I'm saying
The
how they're going to look at it is, okay, the VA hospital is doing all of this little bitty office can be shut down without severe remedy. That's how they look at it, not me.
But if they don't have the services in Denver either.
And I'll tell you another aspect that my wife brought to my attention last night. Some of these red states, like for instance, my wife and kids, me being a disabled vet, their health care comes through Champ VA. That's what our health care is called. Some of these red states are turning away Champ VA families.
All right.
Not even seeing them.
And I hear the red states are being more affected by these cuts in many areas. So they need to call whoever they voted for too.
Call, and call.
We want to hear your question.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This sign keeps following me around. Sorry about that, but are you working it? Okay. Since the election, I've been paying attention to everything that's been going on since actually the day of the election, and I'm really outraged. I'm really enraged. So I put together a list of many of the things that have happened after this current election, and I would like to read it to you. I'll do it quickly. Okay. Okay, I call it resist. And I say resist Trump's war on the United States. And I also say democracy is worth saving. The Trump administration has acted illegally and unconstitutionally in ways that weaken our democratic institutions, slow down our economy, roll back protections for public health and the environment, and put health care and Social Security benefits at risk for millions of Americans. We know this. We've talked to all these wonderful people and heard their stories. But there's a little bit more I'd like to add. I'm trying to keep it with some of the more important things that have not yet been mentioned. And here's a list of federal and international agencies on life support, targeted for direct attack and already dissolved through infiltration by Musk's DOGE. I don't even want to say the word. Under Trump's directive. Okay, here's the list.
The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, we all heard about that. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Defense, I can't see over that thing, Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Federal Labor Relations Authority, National Labor Relations Board, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, that lets us know when we're facing terrible. The Internal Revenue Service, Treasury Department, the Department of Education, because they seem to think that ignorance is bliss. Social Security, logging, drilling, exploitation of public lands, including national forests, national parks, national monuments, the Endangered Species Act. All these are being affected as we speak, or already diminished.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have copies of this? Could we, I'm going to encourage people to maybe we can share some copies of this because it's long and we might want to get a few more comments.
Okay, it is long, but just to let you know, it's so long. Let me just rant for a little bit here. Just like
Do we want to? I'm going to have one more. That lady in the back. Okay, one more, and then we can talk amongst ourselves. Please, please, can you be quiet? We still have one more person to speak. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you all for our panelists. You were fabulous. Thank you so much. My name is Cathy O'Neill. I moved from Denver to the San Luis Valley in November of 21 after a 10-year investigation of what the Valley was all about and falling in love with the Valley. I'm a much better doer than a beer. And I don't know how much I'm stepping into, but this last 2 months has felt like 20 years to me. And we've got 4 years to survive. Like, I think it was the farmer, Kyler said that you're good for 2025, but we have no idea what's going to happen in 2026 and beyond. I would like to work, and I don't know how to integrate, but I'm an organizer from Denver. I would like to help develop a rescue committee for the Valley. So people who...
Do you have some information that you could leave in the back, or?
Not yet, but I'll be happy to.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap it up here with some closing remarks from Liza Marin. Thank you. Sure.
My name is Bob Rice. I'm co-chair of the Alamosa County Democratic Party. We're interested in you. We want new ideas. We want new people. We want your voice. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Facebook and let us hear from you.
He wants to hear from you.
If you're interested in receiving information from the Alamosa County Democratic Party, what is the other contact you? Please sign. There's a sign-up sheet back on the back table. I think it's still there. Please give us your email, phone number, give us a way to contact you. We want you. We love you. Please come join us.
So thank you so much, everybody, for coming here today. Your presence is really appreciated, and beyond that, it's essential. With what's going on in our country right now, we all have to show up, we have to speak up, and we have to stand up. I want to thank the folks who are responsible for this beautiful venue, Society Hall. I want to thank I want to give our deepest thanks to our moderator, Paula Medina, and all her beautiful work with restorative justice. I used to be on that board when it was the Victim Offenders Reconciliation Programs. I think that's how long ago that was. Cathy O'Neill, thank you for your bravery and standing up here and sharing your story. And I do believe your memoir is going to be amazing because I've already read one of your books that she is already an accomplished author, so I wish you the best in that. Kris Steinberg, I will say she delivered my 36-year-old son. And I was very touched when we had a conversation the other day and she was talking about the people sobbing in her office. And I'm just so thankful for you and how you stand up for your patients and all the other great work that you do. And Angelica, thank you also for your bravery, not only for the work that you do, but also for standing up in front of everybody here with your second language, which many of us only have mastered one, so thank you. Thank you so much for the very important work you're doing with immigrants. It is so important. Chris Canaly, you are a powerhouse, and I'm so thankful that you are on our side and fighting for our public lands. Saguache County is 70% public lands, and it is a sacred place for all of us that live there, that hunt there, that fish there. If this country goes down, we can get our wood, we can get our food. Those public lands are really important. Thank you. Kyler Brown, I'm so glad that you agreed to show up today, and he is a great philosopher. He is the leader of Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, and I want to offer and take this moment to encourage membership in Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. If you eat, you are part of agriculture, and we have a great active chapter here, and one of the things that we do is fight for policy that's good for rural America and fight for policy that's good for agriculture. So please get involved. And I only just met Eric, but I am so thankful that you are here and for your courage, and thank you for your service. Thank you for your words. And I will say the reason I helped organize this town hall was because I watched, as we all did, our president humiliate the President Zelensky from Ukraine, and a democratic leader of a country that is being invaded by a dictatorship. And the fact, I was shocked, my stomach fell out of my body to see that we would stand with a dictatorship. My grandfather fought in World War II, my uncle in World War I, my uncle in World War II, my father in the Korean War, and they would be turning over in their graves if they saw that we are turning our backs on NATO and embracing dictatorships. And so, thank you. I want to thank you to Senator Simpson for being here. I am a Democrat who votes for that Republican man. I'm so thankful for Patrick Ortiz, and he spent many years leading San Luis Valley Great Outdoors with others, and I'm sure that was a lot easier than what he's doing now.
Different kind of hard.
Yeah. And we have Commissioner McCracken here. Thank you. And I don't know if we have any other elected officials here, but we don't all agree. We don't all stand the same on all the issues, but that is the beauty of this constitutional republic. We all have the right to voice our opinions at the top of our lungs for something that somebody else would disagree at the top of their lungs. That was Michael Douglas, from our president. That is one of my favorite speeches of all time. So together, we have the power. I will say that people who got to listen to Bernie Sanders and AOC said that his real message was about community, and something that he did, I wasn't there, but something he did was say, turn to your neighbor, introduce yourself. We have to build community. We have to stand strong together. We do have power. We can take care of our neighbors, and we've heard stories, human stories of how this administration is affecting our neighbors, and we can stand with them. We can stand shoulder to shoulder with the marginalized members of our community. We can donate to an organization that we think is doing good work. We can volunteer. We can organize. We can join Farmers Union. We can, I think that's all the things I had. Silence is not an option. Waiting is not an option. This is our moment to fight for each other, for the Constitution, and for the very soul of our country and our democracy. Courage to all of you. Our country needs us.
And I'd like to thank Jane for her leadership. That's what I'm going to address, yeah. That was in that last page of my things. No, Peter Taylor has recorded it today, and if you're on Facebook or you go to Blue Sky and you put in Indivisible, I think it's Baca Grande Indivisible, you will see a link. And I just hope it spreads like wildfire and you share it with your friends. Okay, thank you so much.